Where did everything go so wrong for Arsenal this season? They're 11th place on the Premier League table. They've just been knocked out of the FA Cup by Southampton. They've brought in no major signings this transfer window. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure Mikel Arteta is the right man for the job. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, today I'll be talking about everything Arsenal related. From their players to their manager and even their transfer window. Which, of course, before we get into that, hey everyone, my name is Finn, or Fincross Football on YouTube. Which, by the way, trying to reach 900 subscribers within the next few weeks, so any sort of support towards that would be very much appreciated. So please go ahead and subscribe if you're not subscribed. And today's video, it's kind of going to be a tiny bit like a podcast, just myself talking to you guys. Not going to be a highly edited video. But first game, of course, the game that makes me want to talk about this video is the fact that Arsenal have just been knocked out of the FA Cup by Southampton, and rightly so, I would say. Going into that game, looking at that game, watching that game, I mean, Arsenal were just outplayed on every level by Southampton. Southampton really did deserve to go through. They played better football, in my opinion. So, you know what? Congratulations, Southampton. Saying that, Arsenal, it is shocking that you didn't get a result in that game. I mean, Arsenal are just about to play Southampton again in the Premier League over the weekend. And if they can't beat Southampton, that is 3 times this season that they haven't beaten Southampton, which for a team like Arsenal, that is a shocking statistic. I mean, especially considering the fact that versus Southampton in the FA Cup, Arsenal pretty much put their strongest team on the pitch. It was almost their strongest team. Majority of them were their first team starting players for the Premier League. So the fact that they couldn't get a result, I mean, that itself was shocking. The team didn't perform very well. Only 2 shots on target. Saying that, they didn't play Aubameyang or Lacazette. They played Ketia, which I do have to say, I don't understand why both Lacazette and Aubameyang have to start in the Premier League, or both have to play in the Premier League, because at the end of the day, I think that they both work better as strikers as opposed to Aubameyang on a winger position. So I do think that maybe you should have played either Lacazette or Aubameyang versus Southampton in that game. But you know what, that's just my opinion. But my major problem in that game was definitely Arsenal's midfield, and to be honest, that's a huge reason to why they could have lost by even more. There were so many times where at the edge of the box, Arsenal's midfield or defense just sat back after a corner or something and allowed James Ward-Prowse to take a shot. Now, James Ward-Prowse is one man that you cannot give space at the edge of the box. Yes, he didn't necessarily score, but he is one of those players who is most likely to score from the edge of the box. Arsenal just don't seem to know what to do in those kinds of situations. They don't know how to defend, they don't know how to man mark, and that will cost them hugely. And unfortunately, I have to say that goes down to management and management of the team, which I have to say, obviously going to be answering the big question quite early of, do I think Arteta is the right man for the job? Now, I have to say this. I have never been a major fan of all these teams from around the world just getting former players as managers. I mean, yes, the fans love it at first, but we've seen so many cases now of it just not working. Koeman at Barcelona, Pirlo at Juventus, Lampard at Chelsea. It just doesn't always work, even initially or for a very long time. Solskjaer at Manchester United. It's just very rare occasions where sometimes it does end up working out. Obviously, United are doing relatively well, but as I said, former players don't necessarily always make good managers, and that's the problem with Arsenal and especially Mikel Arteta, because you look at him and you actually can't justify keeping him, in my opinion, because he's not a proven manager. And you cannot say, yes, but he helped Manchester City win trophies under Pep Guardiola. I can promise you, with a team like they have now, with players like De Bruyne, Aguero, when they had Vincent Kompany, all those really strong players managed by Pep Guardiola, I think that they would have managed just fine without Arteta. I don't think Arteta has built himself up a big enough reputation to be justified keeping him at Arsenal. To be honest, I think Arsenal going into the season, I heard many Arsenal fans saying that they think Arsenal could be title contenders this season. So if you told them at the halfway point that they would be 11th on the table, that is shocking. And the big problem now is Arsenal seems to be in better form. They are now 5 or so games unbeaten at the moment in the Premier League. And you might be asking, how is that a problem for Arsenal? Well, the thing is, I think that probably if they start having a few good games in a row, few good run-off games, and they end the season in 7th or 6th, they're probably going to say, you know what, Arteta recovered a tiny bit, let's give him another chance, which at the end of the day, that's not what you want. You want a manager who can get the best from his team throughout the season. Arsenal are not a bad looking team, but you know what, saying that, they're not a good enough team to be in the top 4 or maybe the top 6 to an extent. I'm saying that because looking at the team, looking at the individuals in the team, they are not excellent individuals that you would say, yeah, that's a Champions League player. I mean, going through the Arsenal squad, I mean, Leno in the goalkeeper position, he's probably someone who I could argue is maybe a Champions League player. But looking at that defense of Arsenal, I think the likes of Tierney has really stepped up this season. Bellerin also hasn't looked that bad, but in terms of their centre-backs, when you look at players like Rob Holding, you know, if you play Rob Holding on a regular basis, which I'm sorry, I don't mean to be insulting, but if you have Rob Holding as one of your main centre-backs on a regular basis, you do not look like a Champions League team. Along with that, also David Luiz, who has great moments, but unfortunately, way too many defensive errors, and of course, Mustafi, I don't have to say too much more about that. Yes, I know there are also 1 or 2 other really good centre-backs that Arsenal plays, but the problem is on a regular basis, you'll either see, as I said, Mustafi, Holding, or David Luiz playing, which that is a major problem. You cannot be playing players like that in your defense if you want to be a top 4 team. So defensively, Arsenal, I mean, they've got okay players, but not good enough to be Champions League. Midfield-wise for Arsenal, also I would argue definitely not looking like a team that is ambitious enough to reach a top 4 team. I don't know why Arsenal fans are so baffled by the fact that they're not doing better this season. Looking at their defensive midfielders, I mean, Xhaka, he can be okay on his day, but discipline-wise, he is very, very poor. Elneny, once again, not a Champions League player. I would obviously argue very strongly against Thomas Partey. Of course, he is the one exception. He is probably the most world-class player that Arteta has brought into that squad. He looks amazing when he is fit, when he is playing, but other than that, I mean, the midfield of that Arsenal team is very average. It's equivalent to maybe the midfield of a team like Wolves or West Ham or a midfield like that. They need better players in that midfield team if they want to compete for the title. And Arsenal, it is slipping a tiny bit of you looking like a great club because it has almost been 2 decades since you've lifted the Premier League. And that in itself is very, very shocking. They need a proper attacking midfielder. I think Smith Rowe has looked very, very good as of late. He's looking like, as I've said in a previous video, maybe like almost like a young, like almost, I don't want to say shadow, but a prospect that could be something that Mesut Ozil was. I think he's got that creative play in him. He just needs to work on that, which, by the way, just looking at that point, I'm still in utter disbelief the fact that Arsenal got rid and didn't play Mesut Ozil. Yes, his numbers weren't great over the last few years, but creative-wise in that midfield, that is where Arsenal have been lacking. And I think Mesut Ozil potentially could have been a player who stayed in that squad. Definitely over some of those other midfielders. As I said, to have in your midfield a player like Elneny and not Mesut Ozil, to me, that is shocking. They need a proper another attacking midfielder. Look, Ceballos looked very, very good initially, but he has fallen off as of late. And in terms of that attack, I mean, I've got the statistics right in front of me. That front 3 of Arsenal is shocking. I mean, Aubameyang has gotten 5 goals this Premier League season. Lacazette, 7, a tiny bit better. Saka, 4. I mean, although has the least out of those 3, Saka's probably looking like the better player out of those 3. And I personally think that Arsenal have a major problem in terms of the players that they brought in. The previous transfer window, they brought in Willian, who, yes, got a hat-trick of assists in his debut. But at the end of the day, if you want to build a team for the future that can contend and compete in very strong competitions, at the end of the day, buying a 30-year-old player is not going to do it. And although I liked Willian at Chelsea, one of my favorite Premier League players of all time, I don't think that Willian was the right decision for Arsenal. He is too old. He's not as fast as he used to be. And the big problem is the other wing position that I've left out is obviously Pepe, who has had a horrific season. Bought him for like £75 million, which now you just can't justify because I think Arsenal would be lucky to sell him for 25 million maybe. So you know what, as I said, I think that they've got decent quality players at Arsenal, but they definitely have to buy stronger players. And in terms of their transfer window, the only transfer that is set at the time of recording is the likes of Matt Ryan, the goalkeeper from Brighton, who I actually really like that idea of a signing. I think he's a fantastic signing. I think that he did really well at Brighton in the first 2 seasons that they were promoted. And as a backup goalkeeper for Arsenal, I think that's an absolutely fantastic signing. But you know what? It's just a pity that they're not in the FA Cup anymore to play him. So I don't know if they're going to play him in the Europa League or something like that. And I do have to say, I'm very happy I'm not an Arsenal fan at the moment, because I would be very, very pissed off. I'm a bit sympathetic towards Arsenal fans because, let's be honest, if you are struggling, if you want to be a top 6 team and you are in the bottom half of the table, if the only signing you have made to this point is a backup goalkeeper, I would be very, very upset. Yes, you could argue, oh, Manchester United haven't made any signings, Liverpool, same with them, but at the end of the day, they are close to the top of the league and the top of the league. So at that point, I mean, you have to argue that Arsenal, all the fans want, all the players want, is major improvement, and it's not there at the moment. Now, at the time of recording though, it has not officially happened, so I don't know if it will by the time the video is out. But of course, Martin Odegaard from Real Madrid, huge links for him to go to Arsenal on a 6-month loan, which, by the way, I actually think that's a fantastic option, or a fantastic, option to have. That if Odegaard moved to Arsenal on a 6-month loan, I think that could totally change Arsenal around. He is one of those players. He is looking very, very exciting overall. Obviously, over the last 2-3 years, he's been loaned out from Real Madrid. And on those loans, especially to Real Sociedad, he looked incredibly strong. And he's apparently asked Real Madrid to be transferred out. So if he could go to Arsenal, his creative ability looks really, really good. And that's exactly what Aubameyang and Lacazette need behind them. And once again, Lacazette. Hey guys, sorry, just to pause the recording quick. If you are listening, sorry, I meant to say Aubameyang, not Lacazette. Thank you. He's one of those players who, yes, I know, not Arteta's fault, but initially, yes, looks like a very good signing, but he's probably reached his age, his prime. He's probably passing his prime. And yes, I know people are going to bring up the ages of Ibrahimovic, Cristiano Ronaldo in their late 30s, and Ibrahimovic turning 40 this year. But at the end of the day, not every footballer ages like that. Don't forget, players like Iniesta moved away to Japan at like 33 years old or in his 30s. Not every player retires the same. Even Ian Robin retired in his mid to early 30s. So at the end of the day, not every player ages the same. And I think what Arsenal should have done with Aubameyang is probably played him for the 2 seasons that they had him. He did very well for the first 2 seasons. And then probably sell him for about 40 million. That's what I think they could have done. But unfortunately, as I said, Aubameyang in the Premier League, only 5 goals at the halfway point. That is shocking. I mean, Arsenal's attack not looking very good. And as I said, I think it goes down to both the quality of players in the pitch, on the pitch, in the team, should I say, and man management. I don't think Arteta is the right man for the job. I think Thomas Tuchel could be a very, very good option, as he is without a job. And I know lots of people are saying, oh yeah, maybe someone like Brendan Rodgers, the same way Chelsea wants him. But at the end of the day, Leicester City are competing for the title. I don't see him wanting to move down, and that's the problem with Arsenal. At the moment, they want to compete once again, and now the problem is they've dug themselves such a deep hole that if they actually sacked Arteta, would any good manager want to take that place, and would they be able to take Arsenal to the top once again? Once again, that is a major problem, but you know what? Arsenal could be on the up, they could be on the rise, because as I said, at the moment, they've gotten a tiny bit of form. There are really promising players in that team, but they're just not performing well enough, and they need a proper manager. And once again, as I said, very odd that they got rid of Mesut Ozil. I thought that he could have probably played for a good year or so, which, by the way, I want to ask you guys, please comment down below. If Ozil was in this current Arsenal team and had been playing this season, would it make any difference? Would they be 1 or 2 places higher? Would they be lower? Would he have made a difference? And also another really weird one, considering Arsenal are struggling defensively, is the fact that they have not played Saliba. Obviously, they bought the French centre-back from Saint Etienne, I believe, last season or a season or 2 ago, and they actually haven't given him any play time, which is a huge shame considering he looks like such a high-profile young player. So, you know what? I don't know, looking at this Arsenal team overall, it has not gone well for them this season. And it's a whole process of taking one step forward, two steps back, or something like that, or two steps forward, one step back, because Arsenal, to me, if you're not making any improvements, you need to make major changes. We see that with top teams, for example, like when Juventus won the league and they had Sarri as their manager, but they didn't progress in the Champions League, they sacked their manager. They won a trophy, but because they are not moving forward in the competition that they had goals in, they sacked their manager, and I have to respect that. And the problem is, because Arteta won 2 trophies last season, the Community Shield and FA Cup, because of that, they say, you know what, we're pretty happy with him, maybe he'll bring more trophies. Where at the end of the day, those are trophies that Arsenal are used to winning. They're not used to winning the Premier League anymore, and they're not looking closer to winning the Premier League than they did last season. So because of that, I would sack Arteta, which, by the way, talking about the FA Cup, they are now out of the FA Cup. So I think Arsenal's chances of any trophies this season, I think they're long gone. I don't think they stand a chance in Europa League. Premier League, I mean, you're having a joke if you think they have a chance at doing anything in the Premier League this season. FA Cup, obviously, they're out. They're not going to do much about that. So, you know what, guys, that's probably going to be the end of my video. As I said, not a highly edited video like I normally do, which, by the way, if you do want to see my normally weekly Premier League predictions, all that kind of stuff, and you're not subscribed, please do subscribe down below so that you can catch that stuff, along with Finn Kraus Football on Instagram, because I do post football statistics there from time to time. And of course, that is probably all I have to say about Arsenal at the moment. It's just really not looking good for them. And I've also done these kinds of videos with Chelsea and Wolves before, how I think Wolves can improve, how I think Chelsea can improve. So the links to those videos will be down below. But guys, that is probably going to be the end of today's video. Arsenal, although you are a rival team to me, I don't like seeing rival teams fail. So I hope that you do pick up some kind of form. And guys, this has been Finn, FYNN. I do love and appreciate every single one of you. Stay cool, stay awesome, stay rad. I don't know, I'm not from the 90s, but have a good one. I'll see you next video. Cheers.
Marvin Devine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating thanks to all the rumors you be claiming. It's cool, I'm done with you.